in order to like improve, you have to be trying hard. Trying is binary. You are trying hard or you are not. Did you try to do that move? Really? And I do this drill with athletes too, where it's they will give a go on something and then they'll come down and on a piece of paper with a pen, I will have them write down at what percent they think they tried on that move or that climb. And if it's not 100%, you weren't trying.
Alex Johnson, AJ, welcome to the Testpiece podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great, actually. I have a little bit of a cold, but other than that, great.
How are you doing? I'm sick. AJ, I'm sick too. We're both kind of sick, but you're a pro. We're pros. We soldier on. I was thinking about this. You've competed a lot, as we're going to talk about. You competing a lot. Have you ever been super sick for like a final or anything?
Not that I recall. I think the worst has been like, yeah, maybe the sniffles like now, but not in a way that I think really has like affected my performance. Not in a way that, you know, honestly, the worst, this is like, we're going to head first dive into like TMI in the first 30 seconds of recording. The thing that affects me the most, not being sick, it's like being on my period or being right before my period, which I know is like affects most female competitors. But
That's tough because you can't
anyway,
control either thing. So
no.
one of the things that we talked about, and we'll definitely get into this, is that you thrive under pressure. And so, what does that mean when you just walk out onto the stage and you have all these things that could be detractors from your performance? Like, do you just let them go by the wayside, or like, how do you deal with something like that?
I don't really like let them anything. They kind of just disappear on their own, I would say. Like the second I step onto the mats would be like, I would say comparable to like the second a performer steps on stage. Everything is just like disappears. And maybe not so much stepping onto the mats, but the second I pull onto the start holds, everything else, like nothing else exists, which is, I think, one of my biggest like assets in being a competitive athlete.
Oh, I love that feeling. Does that mean that are you nervous before you grab the start holds? I understand this idea of it all kind of falling away when you pull on, but do you have butterfly? Even though you've been doing it for so long, do you still get butterflies before stepping out there?
I wouldn't say butterflies. Like I definitely do still get a little nervous, but it's more excitement. And I think at this point, I've done it so many times that I know without a doubt that even if my worst case scenario happens, there's always another day and there's always another comp. You know, like I could go out, slip off the start of every single boulder and not like, or not ever get off the start of any single boulder and get like zero top, zero zones, no score. I could go out and no score, and worst case scenario, like it sucks. I go to dinner with my friends and then I go to the gym the next day, you know? Like it's I just feel like a lot of the like serious pressure that we put on ourselves is maybe really not that serious. But that being said, that pressure is something that I do love and that I thrive under, if that makes
Oh, it
sense.
totally does.
You know, like I like pressure, but there's no pressure.
You're like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if I fall today because next week I'll probably win again anyways. Maybe that's something you
Yeah,
learned.
totally.
uh, what's I always wonder is, so there's this element of letting everything fall away when you step on, or maybe not even letting it, like you said, it just kind of happens. But do you let things in that are positive? Like, let's say you're trying to top finals number 4, you got the zone, you have a hunch that if you hit the top you're going to win, and you hear the crowd roaring. Like, do you feel that?
Totally. And that like amplifies everything. Like the louder the crowd gets, the more I know something sick is happening, the more I like in a sense black out, and then the better I do.
So okay, I still want to do the intro. I got to ask you one more thing though, because I know that you are now doing a lot of coaching, and I believe that a lot of your coaching is of other competitive athletes, people who are focused more on
Yes.
competition. What do you, if you have an athlete that struggles to perform under pressure, what are some tips you have for those athletes?
I feel like basically reiterating or reassuring them that, like, again, their worst case scenario could happen and nothing in their life really would change. Like, we all want to win. We all want to win. And if we don't, like, we're sad or we're bummed or we're disappointed or we're frustrated. And if it's like something that we did wrong or like something that was out of our control, like there's things that you can control and there's things that you can't. And the only thing that you can control is yourself and what you do. And so, like, how anyone else around you doesn't matter. Like someone in the chair before you could flash every boulder, but you can't control anything that they do. So them flashing a boulder has nothing to do with whatever you're going to do on that boulder. Just because they topped it doesn't mean now you're not allowed to. Like there's only one top per boulder. So it's you pull on and you're going to do what you're going to do on that boulder regardless of what anyone else did. There's no, and that's like the cool thing about climbing. Like there's no opponent. Like no one's going to be there pulling you off. Like you're going to do what you're going to do. And that's like the way it is. And so the only thing you can control is yourself. And so like getting too invested in other people's scores or what anyone else around you is doing or not doing is not only counterproductive, but it's like arbitrary because it just doesn't matter. Like I'm going to top the boulder or I'm not.
Is that something that you developed over time? Like, were you like that when you were competing at, like 16 or even before climbing? Because did you compete when you were in track and field?
I did, yeah. It's definitely something that I think I'm not sure if it was always there because like even in competing, like it used to I would notice if someone ahead of me or after me was topping boulders and then I'd be like, shit, I didn't top that one or like now I have to top the next, it's you kind of just play these games with yourself that's like I have to top this to make finals or I have to if I don't top this I won't make finals and then that is like where negative pressure and like fear comes into play. And that's also the thing that you just like the only thing you have control over is whether or not you're going to do something. And so even just paying attention to like yeah, anyone doing anything, like let's say you didn't get any tops and you're on boulder 4 in semis trying to make finals and someone coming after you has flashed everything, like just because they're flashing everything doesn't mean you need to flash everything to make finals. It could be a one top round, maybe they're having the round of their life but no one else has gotten off the ground on anything, like you're still in the game. There's always, you never know. So it's like writing yourself off or counting yourself out or like succumbing to that negative sort of pressure of what's going on around you is also arbitrary because, again, it could be like a one top round.
It's so brutal if you don't if you don't top like number one and number two, and just that feeling like it's over when you're right that.
You're just like, oh
But
God.
like you see, I mean, as a spectator, sometimes it's you see like, oh, those didn't actually matter that much, and you want, or you got to finals because you performed well on 3 and 4, but in your head, it's like it's over. But you can even see, I did something like this when I was younger. So I'm like a little kid competing, and then you do bad at like divisionals or something, and you think, oh, my life's over. You're like, no, you're 12. Like
Right.
it's gonna be
Totally.
okay. But boy, do we project. And I hear what you're saying, but I'll tell you what, it's hard. I think everyone finds it hard to internalize that. I also want to ask you if you have brought that kind of thinking into your outdoor climbing. You, God, I really got to do the intro after this, but AJ, you're also famous for your long-term siege of the Swarm, which you did over 10 years, and it culminated in a really cool real rock film that just came out a few years ago. And yeah, what's that same kind of mentality and just showing up again and not being so fixated on today's performance? How does that translate into some of your outdoor sense?
I think this is going to sound crazy, but I think my outdoor projecting approach is like far more negative and self-deprecating than my like who I am as a competitor. Like when I'm competing, it's I want to do well and I thrive on that, but I'm also like in a weird sense putting on a show. Like there's people there to watch and they want to see something cool happen and I want to be the one to do that. And so there's I elevate to that like it's really uplifting. And outside, I think I'm a little bit harder on myself cuz sometimes I'm alone or I'm with like one or two other people and I really want to do something, but it's way less of like performance and way more I want to do this for myself. And if I don't or can't, then I feel more like a failure, I guess, if that makes sense. It's really weird. My like persona, like my comp persona and my outdoor projecting persona are completely different people. It's like, you know how Beyonce has her like alter ego is Sasha Fierce. And so it's like,
No,
there's
AJ,
Beyonce
I
and then
didn't know
there's
about that.
Sasha Fierce and oh.
But now I do.
Um yeah, I don't know. There's like like comp performance AJ who's there to put on a show. And I want to win and I want to obviously, but like more importantly, I want to put on a good show for people. And so whether or not that's topping a boulder or having a great attitude and like showcasing who I am in that sense, like but could be both of those things and then outside it's like I want to do this and it's a little I can get a little darker, I guess.
That actually really resonates with me because I think I'm similar to you where I like rising to the occasion. I like the pressure. I like putting on a show. But when I'm kind of by myself out in the cold, I'm like, do I really want to do this? Like, I mean, yeah, I know it's a cool boulder, but like it just I struggle to bring out that extra fire. And I think it's why I haven't projected much. And what I like doing, and I can even think of a time I climbed with you like this is going out with a big crew, like being around a lot of people and there's an energy there that is easy to feed off of. And I'm thinking of, I think the last time I climbed with you, I watched you just cruise and flash a really beautiful, scary climb called Luminance for, I think, the first female ascent as well. And yeah, that was good energy there. And there was a bit of a show. In fact, it got captured on video too.
Totally. And that's like that kind of performance aspect too. Like, and I love flashing. Like, I love trying to flash boulders. And I think why most of my career, most of the things that I've done have been like V10 and under. Like, I've done, I, I don't know, maybe a dozen V12 and 13s combined. Um, but a lot of what I like doing outside is like, and that's like that comp pressure. Like that's the same. Like trying to flash like a V9, like a sick V9 or sick V10 is like the same. I get that same high basically. Is like something that is totally flashable and super my style, and I kind of like go into it being like, oh yeah, this is like I'm gonna flash this, and that's that same. I get the same feeling at a comp, and so that's I think why projecting is so hard is because it's like oh, I'm not going to flash this and I maybe am never going to do it. So I'm just going to sit here on my ass and like try really hard moves and get a little demoralized. But then if you do something, I wouldn't say I'm a great projector.
What did you learn from that long term project on the Swarm?
Um, I don't know, nothing. No, that's not true. But like, I feel like I've learned more on other boulders recently. Like, I went out the first day I tried Nothing But Sunshine. I don't think I did a single move. And I was like, well, this is really hard. And I didn't do a single move. So I probably won't ever do this boulder. So why would I come back to it? And then I was like, whatever, like Vest wants to try it. So I tried. There was like every day I tried it, I ended up doing more moves. And then it's like day 4 or 5, you like blink moves together. And then all of a sudden you send a boulder, which is kind of mind blowing still, even for climbing for 25 years. Like the fact that you can go out on day 1 and not do a single move and then even like a few sessions later be topping something out is like how does that how do we do that, like how I don't understand how that happens. And so it's like things like that I haven't applied myself to as much because maybe I'll go try something on the first day and not do a single move and then write it off. And so there's people who have like far more resilience in terms of like applying themselves to work. They're like, I want to do this boulder and I'm going to go work it until I can do all the moves and then I'm going to start linking it together. And I go out and if I'm like, I can't do a single move on this, I'm going to go do something else.
You know what's funny though is that in some ways you're doing the same thing with comps where, oh, I didn't win this comp, or I didn't do so well at this comp. I'm going to show up next time. I'm going to do better next time. And
That's
it's
true.
a similar mentality. And so I'm not going to say like projecting is, I'm not a good projector. I like flashing boulders. So okay, we already talked about some great highlights, but I still want to give you a sweet, sweet intro to share some of the highlights that your long storied career has had. AJ, I met you many moons ago when you were first starting that siege on the Swarm in Bishop, which you ended up
Yep.
doing. Only took about a decade.
The literal day. You met me the same day, the day I started the
Was
siege.
that? Oh man. Oh jeez.
I think.
Well,
I think that was the first time I touched it, was that day.
what's hilarious is how you said you learned nothing over a decade. I thought what you're going to say is don't don't pick a project that's going to take a decade, because that is, yeah, that's a long time. But
I don't have time to do that
I
again.
will say good choice in boulders though. I mean, it's a beaut.
So sick.
I
Yeah.
I'm curious. It's okay. I'm gonna goodbye intro. Uh, Swarm.
We don't need it.
I know that you have talked a little bit about how maybe your crimp strength is not your. If you were to compare yourself to Allison Vest, who I know you climb with a lot, perhaps she would be better than you on the hangboard. Which, in fact,
Oh, perhaps
yeah. It's a joke
a
because she's
hundred
better than
percent.
all of us combined. Uh, but the swarm kind of revolves around a really thin intro, almost kind of, I don't want to say hangboard. I don't know, a very crimpy intro, and then really shouldery, or at least typically a really shouldery kind of Gaston move as you traverse into it. What part was the real stopper for you?
So for the first several years, the hardest move for me was the shoulder, like shoulder to shoulder. I actually never did that move until 2021. I was like trying a bunch of alternate. I was like trying to crimp, like match the little crimp that you jump to. Um, and I was like successful doing that. Like I got from the crimp into the right shoulder in 2014. Like I was like going crossing to do. I was like basically sending the boulder, and then I dry fired out of something and like backsplatted, and then didn't get through that section again for another couple years. And then when I went out in 2021 to project it again, the hard move was the second move, crimp jump. And I could like pull on from that position, do the shoulder to shoulder, and then finish the end of the boulder. And so it was really interesting, I think, that when I was younger, the hard move for me was the like actual muscle strength move. And then years later when I was older, that move felt really not that bad. And the hard move was like the crimp to crimp. So I don't know that my crimp strength like changed. I don't think I got weaker. I don't really know. I know I got stronger because the shoulder to shoulder was like something I could do on command every day. And then I just had to like figure out again how to like do that lerpy second move catch thing, which I stuck. There were days from 2014, 15, 16 where I would go out and I would do the second move like 3 or 4 times in a session, which is like ridiculous. And then to like not do the rest of the boulder. And then there were, when I was there in 2021, I think it was like 6 to 8 sessions where I didn't do that second move ever. And the one time I did it, I topped the boulder out.
Hmm. This is why it's such a cool boulder, is because it has those two very different gates of style. And like for me,
Yeah.
I'm similar to older AJ, where I don't think that the shouldery bit is very difficult at all, but that second move is difficult. It's heinous. I
Yeah.
find it's. And I've walked out there and I've seen. Last time I was out there, I saw this. I don't know who he was. He was some. I think he was from Switzerland, and he just, when he did the second move, he didn't even do it well. He was swinging around like it wasn't like this nice. You say lerp, and it kind of like that lerp where you kind of catch it and it just looks beautiful. He was like, I don't know what he was doing. He looked terrible, just
Launching.
launching and then snagging it, swinging around, and then just could not do that shoulder move. And I thought, wow, like we need to combine our powers, and we could do this boulder really quick, man. Uh, that's
Totally.
that's anything you attribute to, getting stronger on that shoulder move? Like, you think it was just more time in the gym climbing on, compier boulders? Like, I mean, that's a long gap in your climbing, and so yeah, I'm surprised to hear that you changed so significantly physically.
Um, I don't think I did on purpose. Like there were years that I was like I thought I was intentionally training shoulders to go back to the swarm and I just wasn't. Honestly, this is going to sound insane, but I think I just got like adult strong. Like when I was like out in my early 20s, I was still kind of like noodly and like didn't really have muscles. Like I wasn't strong. I think I'm good at climbing. I think my movement and my momentum and my flow is like really natural. And I think I have really good contact strength and like I can crimp my thumb. I think my thumbs are really strong. Um, but like basically until I turned, I don't know, 29 or 30, I don't think I was like strong, which is it sounds insane and I know it's relative because I like whatever comps climbing outside like I'd won comps, I'd done hard stuff. But I think until I turned 29 or 30, I didn't know what strong was. And I thought I was and I wasn't. And then I got this like weird adult strength. And now, even now, coming back from an injury, I feel like my body and my big muscle groups are all stronger than I was 7 to 10 years ago. Maybe like the thing that's going to go first or that feels the weakest is my finger strength, but my body is way stronger.
I've noticed this phenomenon too. I don't know. I don't know if there's any scientific thing around it, but I remember hitting. I think for me around my mid 20s, yeah, maybe even later 20s. I just felt like I got stronger, but there was no thing to attribute it to. I was just doing my thing, and all of a sudden I could, and
Same,
like
totally,
pinches
same.
felt better. I just felt like I had this connection with my
Yeah,
body. So that's really good tip there for everyone. Just get older. Just get older.
totally.
It happens every day.
If you're scared of it, don't be because you're just only getting stronger. And my body is like strong. Yeah, strong, strong.
Okay, let's go back inside and talk a little bit about your comp career because I think the Swarm is awesome. I mean, the Swarm is incredible. Luminance was incredible. I also wanted to point out I love your climb critically acclaimed in Vegas. I feel like that's like one of the coolest climbs of the grade in Red Rocks, and it's also pretty tall.
So
I
sick,
I, I don't know. You don't get. I don't think of you as being quote unquote a high ball climber, but some of those climbs you've done, flashing luminance, that was no joke. It was scary, especially back then. I feel like maybe it doesn't get the credit now, but that
right?
was scary, and people have gotten seriously injured on that. And watching you flash, I think you might have not just been the first female ascent, you probably were the first flash because I think we got like the fourth and fifth or something ascent that day.
I think we
Yeah.
did. It was yeah. Only a couple people had like done it at all. Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm like someone who has actively sought out high balls either, but I've definitely like done quite a few of them
I think
unintentionally. I guess. No, I mean intentionally, but yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, my read there is that one of the ways to enter into that headspace of performing and caring is having a little bit of danger tossed in the mix because you can't help but kind of bring out a little bit of extra there, and everything falls away a lot quicker when you feel like the consequences are up. So okay,
Totally.
okay, maybe we'll go back outside, inside. AJ, we're going inside. Uh, I I I remember climbing with you in Bishop and knowing that you had already won multiple World Cups at the time. You were definitely competing and at the top of that world. But I mean, we're not young now, and we weren't super young then. You weren't 16 then, and it seemed like maybe you were kind of doing the classic climber thing of aging gracefully out of competition climbing and going and climbing outdoors. But then you started going back to, well, I shouldn't say you started going back to competition. I was just like, oh, AJ's at nationals. Oh, she's in finals. Oh, okay, she's doing that again and again and again. And it's been decades now. And to me, that's just the thing that I found so incredible. And I think that something that I want to share, and maybe you can provide some color on it, is it sounds great to climb at high level in competitions for a long time. Great, cool. Like, great, you're good. But in climbing specifically in such a young sport, we've seen what competitions look like change significantly, and the type of movements, and also the level of field, or the competitive level of the field has really risen, or at least that's what it seems like to me. And so I just kind of want to better understand what it's been like in the evolution of comp. Maybe we can set that stage versus what were competitions like 20 years ago compared to today. And I even kind of want to ask maybe a taboo question of like, what were some of the, like, if you had to grade a finals nationals route in 20 years ago compared to today? I know grades don't capture everything in comps, but just want to kind of understand that better.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the style has changed so much. And I think the first Open Nationals I ever won was in 2003,
Oh my God.
um, at Berkeley Ironworks that Touchstone gym in Berkeley.
Yeah, still there.
And it was on the bouldering finals were on the lead wall, and a little traversy. It was like old school pusher holds, crimps, pinches, super straightforward. Grab, pinch, pull, grab, crimp, jump. Really, like straightforward, hard pulling on crimps and pinches. Um, and then just like yeet to a victory jug. And so it was really, really straightforward and like a lot more reminiscent of climbing outside. And probably grade wise, probably similar. Like maybe V7, V8 women's final. Um, but like hard, straightforward style. And that when I was in Open Nationals finals last year, 2022, no, I was injured last year before. None of that. There was none of that. And I think sometimes even the grades these days may be easier, but trickier. So let's say like hard, I don't know, hard V7, maybe V8 still, but like coordination, or there's a risk factor, or there's a commitment, or there's something just tricky that's more like movement based. So grades, honestly, maybe similar. Style couldn't be more different, which has been an interesting game to play through the decades.
That's really interesting. I thought maybe, I mean, some of that I expected of the just visually, it's pretty apparent that they're a different style, but I don't know. I guess I thought that the grades would be, I thought that they would be harder. Like, I don't want to take anything away from the field that you beat in 2003, but I think I might even know some of those women who were on the podium next to you. And I would just say that they didn't end up climbing V13, V14. They just
Yeah.
you were you were quite strong. And nowadays, I would say if you took a sample of the top 10 women climber, and maybe they don't go outside, and so it would be tough to say, hey, like they're X grade outside. But my hunch is that they would physically be very capable of climbing just as hard as you did back then.
Totally. I would guess that it's like they would probably climb like at least V11, V12 outside. I'm trying to think of, or like V10, V11 inside. I think climbing inside is way harder. I'll be honest, but tangent. And then I'm thinking like that 2003 nationals was like Lisa Rands, Natasha Barnes, Emily Harrington, Lizzie Asher, like all women who I think did end up climbing V12 outside. Just the setting style is so different. I don't know.
Okay, I take it back. Those women are incredible. Although, yeah, I can't remember the last time I climbed with Lizzie, but Lizzie is wildly strong, and Lisa Rand's first female ascent to the Mandala. I remember that was around
Right.
that same time when I met you. Okay, maybe I'm wrong there.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. Just interest. The field is different. The setting is different. The style is different. But I think the only thing that maybe is like has stayed consistent is the level of difficulty. Just sliding among different
And
styles.
you,
Cause like,
you stand,
dude,
you stand.
V7 slab is like V7 slab is no joke. And then V7 like coordination slab or V7 risk. There's just and then you have to do it in 4 minutes. Yeah, I think the only thing that has stayed the same is like how hard it's like you can do V8 pinch to pinch boulder in 2003, and then you come out and do like V8 coordination dyno boulder in 2022. That's the only thing that's maybe stayed the same aside from me.
So, how did you adopt or adapt to the new style? It's one thing to take a 16-year-old or 13-year-old and show them comp boulders, and actually they cut their teeth on them. This is how they learn how to climb. It's very different
Totally.
to be an established seasoned climber that has a style that they love and completely, I don't want to say change it, but be able to add that to their repertoire. What was that like?
Um, I I would base all of that solely on born athleticism. I think I've been really lucky in terms of coordination sort of being something that comes relatively easy. Like it's definitely something I've needed to like train and a skill I've needed to hone, but like I played every sport you could possibly think of growing up, and my coordination and I think athleticism is like literally the only reason that I can hang. And I think I fell into climbing somehow. I'm like a ball sport athlete who fell into climbing. And I feel like most climbers it's the other way around. I think they would have a hard time doing playing basketball or I don't know.
Yeah, what sports did you
And I
play?
think that's why they like I basketball, volleyball, track and field, dabbled in soccer. Um those were like the three main ones.
Didn't you pole vault? I feel like
I did.
there's this theme. I've heard this. I can't remember where I heard this, but that someone argued that pole vaulting may be one of the best sports to pull out some of the best athletes, because you have to run, you have to be able to pull, but it's the commitment. It's that full commitment to sprint at something and then execute perfect technique at a high rate of speed, and do it confidently, that brings out just really top end athletes. I keep hearing pole vaulting when I talk to top athletes.
It's very scary. Pole vaulting was really scary. Like in some ways scarier than climbing. I had like some wrecks pole vaulting that were pretty scary, scarier than climbing. I've definitely like fallen off a boulder and missed the pads before and like got the wind knocked out of me and that like kind of sucked. But I've done the same thing pole vaulting from like either the same height or higher. Like we're like flinging ourselves upside down 13 or 14 feet in the air. And if you plant your pole wrong or your whole, there's like a way, this is, I'm going to go off on a here. Yes, I pole vaulted in high school. I was state champ. I pole vaulted in college.
State champ.
You are
Way to
running,
go.
you have a stick in your hand, and there is a certain way that it bends. And if you are holding the stick slightly wrong, or when you bring it up, it's you're at all turned, the stick only wants to bend, it only bends one way. And so if you're holding it like this, it's going to bend that, like it'll bend whatever way you're facing it. And then instead of shooting up, you're going to shoot that way or up and backwards or just straight backwards. Like it's nuts. And so you plant your pole wrong, and then you're like like flipping upside down in the middle of the air, and all of a sudden your pole is like, oop, not enough momentum this way, we're going to shoot you that way, and then you land on your back on the track, and it's like you're hitting the ground from just the ground from like 13 or 14 feet in the air, and it sucks. Pole vaulting was really scary. Like yeah, you're supposed to land on the mats, but sometimes you don't.
Some kid got paralyzed at my school and they took out the pole vaulting pit, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer.
Damn.
Yeah, I would have done that. That didn't scare me away at all. Just hearing that story, I thought, oh, sucks to be that kid, but I want in.
Right.
Well, what do you think it was about climbing that pulled you in? Because just even hearing you talk about pole vaulting and all these different little nuances, is that something that you really enjoy about climbing, and especially comp climbing? I think there's a element of getting it right. Is that
Yeah.
something you really enjoy in climbing?
Yes, and that was something that like I even when I was running track in college, something I really, really missed was that, yes, there are like subtle nuances of pole vaulting also, where you go up incrementally by an inch or something, but it is really redundant. And the thing that I miss the most is that climbing, there are so many subtle differences in climbing that it's different every single day and even every single time you do a boulder. I have my kids doing this drill now where they pick a boulder and they do it in a bunch of different ways, or basically try to do it in as many different ways as they can. Either playing takeaway, like take away that hold, and if you can send it, take away that hold, and if you send that, like put that one back on, take off that one. There's like a bunch of different, and even not eliminating any holds, just how many different ways can you do it? Heel hook, drop knee, toe hook, inside flag, just like there's so many things, like different ways you can do the same exact thing, and that was something that I really love about climbing. That's like the thing that you're never not learning. You're always learning, you're always getting better. And it's maybe we're going to hit an age in our 50s where we stop getting stronger, but we will never stop getting better. And I think that's like enthralling to me.
You're on the taller side for women climbers. I think you're 5'9". Does that does some of that ethos there of doing things in a different way, was that really important for you when you're on the competition scene? Because do you find yourself quote unquote breaking beta a lot?
Um yes, I think a lot of times there's like an element of trusting yourself too, and I think the new format when we do like flash format, like nationals, all these kids are doing flash format boulders, so they get to watch other people attempt or get on these boulders who have like different styles, different strengths, different heights. And then it's easy for an athlete to get sucked into trying a method that, had they not seen anyone else do, they wouldn't have, that's not something they ever would have tried. And I think I've always like had to trust myself in the way that was like, that high foot isn't going to work for me. I'm going to have to keep a low foot and jump or something. Like there's obviously like a way like an intended sequence is supposed to be, but if I can do something that puts it in my box that's more comfortable. And a lot of World Cup and national level events aren't set for someone who's 5'9". They're setting for the average. So there's like Zhang Kim, who's like 5'1", and then there's a couple World Cup athletes who are like 5'9", 5'10". Like there's they're not it's not set for either of us. And so it's set for anywhere from like 5'3" to 5'6". There's like a perfect little bubble. Even the dynos and the jumps, they're set for the bubble. They're not, so it's in some ways easier if I have to do a dyno being a little taller, but then in some ways harder because maybe they set that dyno for someone who's 5'4" and the feet are really high and it's super scrunchy and it's hard to get that power out of like a really high foot. And so it's, especially on the World Cup circuit, it felt really balanced. Either it played in my favor or it didn't. And most of the times it just was like even. And a lot of it, I didn't feel always super advantaged or disadvantaged. It just was like sometimes it suited me and sometimes it didn't. And I think the same for like someone who's 5'0", 5'1" doing World Cups. Like sometimes it suits you and sometimes it doesn't. And regardless, it's not set for either of us. It's set for like someone who's 5'4", 5'5".
I can't remember which comp it was where it might have been was it a youth comp? I can't remember, but there was a woman who couldn't reach the start. It was like a run and jump for like lead climbing, I want to say, and she couldn't.
Team Trials 2021,
Yeah,
I think.
it was just such a I hate when I just remember being a competitor. I was always horrified by the first few moves, especially because there was no bouldering when I was doing more of my competing, and I was just like, do not fall on the first move. There's just something
Right.
deep in you that you're like, just give me a shot. Like, let me pull on and get into that flow state. Also, right?
Yeah. Once you get going, it's different. It's different. But the first like move or two, you're just like, don't slip, don't slip, don't slip.
So when I watch World Cups now and nationals, I feel like I see a myriad of betas that do work. This way you're just talking about, where it's like, hey, try all these different styles. Is that something that's newer? Was it like that 20 years ago?
I think no, 20 years ago it was like there weren't volumes, and so it was just like a flat basically wall, and it was like hold, 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 hold. And usually it was like left, right, and varying different I guess, types of holds, but even like across 4 boulders in a final, it was like all kind of the same. And it was hard to break the beta because there were only 6 holds on the wall. And now with so many volumes and just different, like a lot of it is slab or like coordination slab or things where it's like you have different options and different, like you can walk across this volume either right, left, right, or you could do left, left, right. Like there's different stutter step, coordination, jump, whatever's. You can do a pogo or you can jump. There's, yeah. And I think a lot of it is because the terrain is different. So we're not, everything 20 years ago was like 35 to 45 degrees, no slab, steep, jump, pull, jump, pull. And now it's like we get like -5 degrees to sometimes like +5 degrees and then even 20. And then the steepest, I think the steepest thing we get now is like 30, 35. And that'll be one boulder. There's like one power boulder and everything else, like 3 to 4 out of the 4 or 5 boulders, there'll be some sort of like vert to slightly overhanging to slab coordination something. And with volumes, there just is more. You got more options.
What do you excel on out of those different types of boulders that you encounter?
Not those. It's probably going to be still the steep power boulder, um, or something commitment. I'm good at committing and trying hard, um, and trying hard in a commitment move. I guess if that makes sense.
Definitely
Where it's like
pole
something where
vaulting.
you,
You're
yeah, totally,
uh, you you've mentioned a few times about coaching kids or talking about drills you put them through. You're coaching a lot now. Can you tell me about that transition? I know you're still competing, but can you tell me about how you got into coaching?
totally. I let's see. I've been coaching, I think, probably since I was 18. I basically graduated the youth team that I was on and then turned around and was like, I would like to still be involved. And I was like an assistant coach, like once or twice a week or something. And so that was, movement is always something that I feel like I've been really passionate about. And I think have a pretty high comprehension of, and especially being able to like articulate how to execute movement. Spatial awareness and spatial reasoning is also something that I think is like an asset for me. Is like I can look at a boulder and I just see it. I'm like foot, hand, foot, rock over the hip. Like even if I can't do it, I can see it and I can tell someone else how to do it. And that's something that I've always loved and been passionate about. And I think I have so much experience that I want to give it back. Like it would be such a waste to die with all of my knowledge and wisdom that I've gained for competing for the last 2 decades. How unfortunate. So basically, all I want to do is tell everyone everything. Um, but so I, yeah, had been competing or coaching, I guess, since I was 18. It was like in and out, off and on. And then I stopped competing on the World Cup circuit and even the national circuit, I think in 2015 or 16, and was sort of just climbing outside. And then in 2018, I got a job offer to move back to Minnesota and coach full time. And I ended up doing that and loved it. I was like hanging out with my kids like 4 or 5 days a week. It was awesome. We were climbing together. And then that year of coaching them and climbing with them, I ended up getting really fit again. And I think that's when I sort of like adapted the most to the new style as I was doing it 5 days a week with like 14 to 18 year olds who like were good. We were all doing it together and learning and practicing and training. And I ended up getting really fit again and was like, oh, shit, I'm pretty fit. I should compete again. And then I started doing that and then competed in 18, 19, tried qualifying for the Olympics, didn't, ended up leaving that coaching job, which was heartbreaking, moved out to Salt Lake to try to pursue competing full time again. I did compete full time again, which was awesome. And then basically, ever since I moved out here, I was like really missing coaching and had like a few not serious offers, but opportunities to coach out here, and it wasn't the same because I just wanted my kids, because we had just developed that, like those, I just wanted to coach my kids. And so I said no for years. And then COVID happened. And then a bunch of teams, I think, unfortunately ended up getting dissolved just because gyms would close. And then maybe the gyms would reopen, but the team program wouldn't. So it was COVID, I think, that sort of started, because most of my coaching is virtual, which was also crazy at first because I'm so in person. Like, it's like spatial reasoning, like breaking movement down, the subtleties of shifting hips, and it's sometimes hard to see that like over video. Or so a lot of the coaching is virtual, and at first I was like not psyched on. I was like, I don't know how that would work. And I basically like took the leap with one athlete. I had one guinea pig athlete. They came to me and I was like, I don't know. I don't virtual coaching. I don't know what that would look like. And I ended up doing it, and now we've been working together for almost 2 years. And it's sick. It's great. It's just totally fine. Virtual is amazing. It's like we have FaceTime calls. I analyze movement over video, and then we like have normal phone calls, and we talk about like strategy, our feelings, we debrief. Everything is great. It's awesome. And I love it. And I'm so happy and grateful to be doing it again. And I think this is super long winded. Sorry. I got extremely injured at the beginning of 2022. And I think had that not happened, I wouldn't be coaching to the extent that I am now. And while I will not say that being injured had a silver lining, because it was the fucking worst thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, I am appreciative, grateful, and excited for all of the athletes that I'm currently working with.
Whew, there's that realness. Getting injured sucks. It's people always want to know, or you hear a lot of chatter about how to make yourself injury proof or how to recover from injuries, all this stuff. And my number one advice is always don't get injured. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's not a whole field of, yeah, don't get injured. Well, something that we talked about, and you can just hear it in your description of your time with these kids, is that deeply personal connection that a coach can have with an athlete. And I don't know if this is silver lining again, but injuries do happen. They do happen, and being able to not just sympathize but empathize with an athlete that goes through something similar, because honestly, we often all do it at some point or another, is probably a really powerful thing for you as a coach. And so I'm curious, what did you learn from that big injury that you might, other than just don't fucking do it?
Yeah, no kidding. Injury proof for the most part in climbing, I feel like it's something that is attainable to some degree. Like we can do prehab, we can strengthen like sometimes freak things happen, but there's a lot. I feel like climbing is a sport that we have the opportunity to be aware of and cautious of. Like there are things that we can do to strengthen injury prone parts of us. I ended up having a freak injury accident. I was playing basketball. It was like a pickup league, recreational women's basketball. Jumped up to block a shot and tore my ACL. My knee exploded. So I didn't even get hurt climbing. So it was just a freak, stupid thing
Not bitter
that
at
I had
all.
to
No anger
no,
towards that
not at
situation.
all.
Nothing. Yeah.
What a fucking disaster. Anyway, um, I don't know. There's like some sort of like form of resilience, but I think for the most part, I'm still just like really bitter about it. This is like when you were like, what did
Yeah.
you learn from the swarm? Nothing.
Yeah.
What did you learn from getting hurt? It sucked. I don't have a takeaway. It
Well,
was horrible.
what would you, if you were talking to your best friend who just blew up their ACL doing something other than climbing, what would you say to them?
That's a better way to. Uh huh. Um, be patient with yourself because it's a lot longer and harder and more painful than anyone tells you, and having that sort of like grace. There was like a period where it was like I got hurt and everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to have the strongest fingers ever. Like you can't climb, so you're just going to hangboard and do upper body for like 8 months." And I was like, "Yeah." And then that never happened because I was way too bummed. Like I was sad and depressed and in pain. I think it took me 3 months to do a hangboard workout, and then I started top roping 5'10" at 6 months. Like it was I didn't do anything. Could I have been hangboarding the whole time? Sure, but could I get myself to do it? No. And that's like this the realest thing that I could say is like I wasn't motivated because I was depressed. And I knew this was going to happen. Like if I could go back and do it differently, I don't know that I could. This was like even at like the third or fourth month, like I was like, I should hangboard. I'm gonna look back and be like, why wasn't I hangboarding? And then I just still like I knew this would happen, and I just still was like, I can't do it.
Yeah, I like the idea of patience because when I've had some serious injuries myself. It's all nice and good to say, "Oh, I'm going to come back 10 times stronger, and I'm going to just fingerboard." And there are some people out there who do that. I don't. Maybe they're robots,
I don't. Yeah,
but
I've seen it.
just that acknowledgement of you kind of can't force yourself. And even if you did go in the gym and hangboard, if you were hangboarding with hate in your heart instead of like excitement, I'm not so sure that you actually get anything done either. You know, it's and so the idea of patience, but I know that you competed again recently, and I know that you've kind of crossed into the next chapter. And just you know, can you help me? Can you take me through what that was like going into the next chapter of the injury, the Phoenix phase,
Yes.
the comeback phase?
Yeah. I competed in Vail 3 weeks ago at the North American Cup. It was the first time I had competed since making Boulder finals in 2022. I made finals in Vail in 2022, and then also made finals at Open Nationals in 2022. Oh, I messed up. I think I said I got hurt in early 2022. I tore my ACL in 2023. So
Oh, so
just for
only a
fixing
year and a
that.
half, not 2.5 years. Still no big deal
Right, right.
then.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah.
It's been totally. I think it's been 14 months
Wow.
since my surgery. So it was, yeah, spring of 2023. Um, and so Vail was the first time I had competed since 2022, like June, October, and was like making finals at Open Nationals and North American Cups and stuff. And so it was like I was fine. My trajectory was fine, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep doing this until I can't, or until I'm like not good anymore. And then I got hurt, and then coming back. So I spent the last like 14 or 15 months waking up every morning thinking that I'm never gonna be the same again. And that's just like the reality of like how this injury has been for me. And I know that that is not the case for everyone. I've had like a lot of complications with my surgery and my graft site, and my all of this has been harder than average. Because a lot of people come back from ACL surgeries and they're just like totally fine, 100% climbing V12 outside again at like 9 months or something. That is not what happened to me. I'm like 15 months out and still I have pain going up and down the stairs. It's has not been great. But my surgeon and my PT have been very reassuring in the fact that my knee is fine. And so the pain is just like range, mobility. I have tendonitis in my graft site. There's like all these other issues. So the knee is fine. The ACL is fine. The knee is fine. And that's really scary for me because I have not been able to commit to like falling or going to the top of the wall and falling. Like I'm so afraid of getting hurt again now and spending the next year and a half doing the exact same thing that I just did, that I'm like a total head case, which is like crazy because I like flashing highballs. Like I'm good at coordination, commitment. Like I yeet for the top of the wall, like do something tall outside and completely miss all the pads. Like I have had not had head issues in the past, and now I have performance issues. And so it was like I got cleared to boulder again and I still wouldn't go to the top of the wall. Or I would like get near the top of the wall and like grab a down climb jug and bail. And so there was a lot of like issues that I was having day to day. And I chose Vail as sort of this thing that I was like, I'm going to do this comp. My knee is fine. Everyone's telling me my knee is fine. I boulder in a brace just because the risk of re-tear in the first 24 months is higher, and the brace is just supposed to be supportive. And so I think I have to be in the brace for the next like 8 or 9 months as just reassurance. And so everyone professionally telling me my knee is fine, I was like, all right, fine, fuck. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So I signed up for Vail and I went, and I was so apprehensive and so nervous because it's the same comp wall that's at the training center in Salt Lake. And I had been going to the training center and literally would not go to the top of the wall. Like I would just bail 4 feet from the top. Like my head is fucked. And then I went to Vail and was like, all the boulders finished on the top of the wall. Sick. Like, I haven't been to the top of the wall momentum. I haven't been to the top of the wall at the front. I haven't been to the top of the wall at the training center. And it's 18 feet tall.
Oof.
And the round started. And I was like, this is like, I have to do this. I am competing. I'm a competitor. I need to do this. And I'm not going to like get to the top of the wall and then bail in front of 200 people, half of them being my competitors and peers. And so the first boulder out, I went up and I fell matching the finish. And it was one of the scariest moments of my life, because I was on this like left foot smear and my left leg is like my weak leg, and this right heel hook like up by my ear. And so I'm horizontal, higher than I've been in almost a year and a half, which is like 2 strikes scary, and I'm on a smear, strike 3, and I'm trying to match this not jug. It was like all these things. It was like worst case scenario. And so I was up there and I was like, I'm going to fucking die. Or if I'm not going to die, I'm going to retail my ACL and they're going to have to carry me out of here. It's going to be embarrassing. And then I'll probably just quit climbing forever. All these things were like going through my head as I was up there. And it felt like I was up there for like a minute and a half. And I like looked at the foot and I had this heel hook and I was like, just fucking try. You have to try. Like you're here. Do not fucking let go right now. And I like matched the finish hold for a second, and it was really bad, and the smear was bad, and the heel was bad, and something, I fell. And then I fell 18 feet, like landed whatever, stood up and was like, sick. Nothing bad happened. That was fine. That was fine. And then I fell at the end of that boulder 7 more times, and everything was fine. And then for the next 3 hours, either sent or fell off the top of every other boulder there, and everything was fine. And then I like left that round the worst I've ever placed in a bouldering comp in my entire life. National, international, World Cup, anything. That I got 50th place. But fell from the top of the wall 40 times. Probably actually 40 times. It was like 8 boulders and you get 8 attempts per boulder. Yeah. Probably 40 times. Committed to coordination moves, committed to trusting my feet on slab, like was like finishing boulders up high, falling off of boulders up high. And then basically since that day, my fear has decreased by like 40%. Let's say 40. But it basically was like it changed everything for me. Like falling from the top up there and like everything being fine and knowing everything was fine. Like I was like, all right, let's fucking go. Like I needed that to happen or I would be stuck. I think I would just be stuck for a lot longer. And got me unstuck. It was this huge breakthrough mentally because it was like physically I'm fine. Like I can boulder V9, V10 in the gym as long as it doesn't go to the top of the wall. And now I've been to the top of the wall. And like, is there a chance that I could get hurt again? Always. Anyone could get hurt falling from the top of the wall. Anyone could get hurt falling from a foot off the ground. But this was like the craziest mental breakthrough I've ever experienced.
You told me that before you went to the comp, the thing you were most afraid of was placing badly. You said
I
that
did.
was the thing you were most afraid of. Uh, so the two things I'm curious about there is, sounds like it, sounds like that wasn't the
I
worst thing
did,
that
and it
happened
didn't
to you.
matter.
And I also want to know what made you click the button to sign up.
I think being afraid of placing badly was like one of those, like, obviously I was afraid to fall and get hurt again, but that not even subconscious, but like forefront fear of sucking. I didn't want people to be like, "Oh, like she's not the same again after her injury," or I don't know. And like I think that, so why would I care if other people think that? Which is hypocritical, but it was like I don't want to go and be embarrassed by how bad I was doing because I've been making bouldering finals at every level for the last 2 decades. And all of a sudden I'm going to show up to this comp and get 50th. Like, what are people going to think? Like, they're going to be like, oh, well, she's career's over. She'll never be the same again. Or I don't know. That's like what I was afraid of mentally. Like, I was afraid of getting physically hurt, and I was afraid of mentally just being like, fuck, everyone just thinks I'm done. And maybe I am. Who knows? Whatever. I did get 50th. But I think even doing that, I knew that I had to face both of those fears. Like, face the fear that I could bomb and feel judged for it, and also face the fear that I'm going to have to fall from the top of the wall again. And I think that's why I signed up. A lot of it was being pushed from Melina. Like, she was like, your knee is fine. Everyone has told you your knee is fine. You have to do this. And I was just like, no, I don't. What if I get hurt? What if I suck? What if everyone sees me suck? And there were things that I definitely sucked on. And then there were things that I like was shining on. Like, I flashed a coordination slab, and then I flashed this other commitment coordination slab. There was like things that I was really, really, really proud of, and I didn't expect to feel that way. Like, I wrote myself off before I got there, and I was like, this is gonna fucking suck. Like, I was really anxious the whole way there. That I was anxious the day before. I was anxious the morning of. I was anxious. Like, all of these mostly mental fears of like, I'm gonna suck and everyone's gonna think it's over.
What I think is really interesting is this idea you had around you shining when you're under pressure. You know that's a key ingredient to bring out the best in you. So it seems like you almost used it to break past a barrier that you, whether it was imposed mentally or whatever it is, it was like you put yourself in a situation where you know you tend to bring out the best in yourself, and it worked like a charm to kind
Totally.
of bust through that barrier that you, whether it was artificial or not. I mean, sometimes those mental things are a little, it's not just, I don't know how to say it's just mental, but there's more to it. That I feel like that doesn't encapsulate the whole feeling when you have a block in your head.
Yeah. Like, I basically had to like, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. I had to like go be Alex Johnson to like pull myself out, if that makes sense.
It does, and it makes me think of this drill. It does. You looked at who you. Well, actually, let me relate it to that.
Could be, or I have been, like, I was not myself for over a year, and I needed to go be that version of myself, that like performance like, I needed to go be Alex Johnson to like try to be Alex Johnson again, I guess.
Is it AJ or is it Alex Johnson? Do you have like a, is the alter ego one of?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I think my alter ego is Alex Johnson.
Interesting. Well, could you
Yeah,
share
it's
that
the full first and last name.
that drill that you take your kids through where you have them, well, I don't
Oh
want to say it
yeah.
because that totally rings a bell. Can you share that drill that you have your kids go through?
Yeah, this is, I like, kids and adults. I'll put everyone through. It's the sickest. I don't know, man. It was, I'm gonna toot my own horn here, but it was like a little bit Melina's idea. And then we sort of like brainstormed this together. So it's athletes that I work with, when they run themselves through mock rounds, I will have them choose an athlete on the World Cup circuit or the national circuit that they look up to or idolize, or someone whose style they like, or someone good, someone whatever. Every week we do this, I make them pick a different athlete. And so it could be like I Mori, who's like small and static and controlled and like reserved, or like Mejdi, who's like super dynamic, coordination, throws a chalk bag when he sends, throws a chalk bag when he doesn't send, like super animated. And so it's every week they pick whoever they want, guy, girl, doesn't matter. And they study them. Like I'm like YouTube, Instagram, watch a World Cup final, watch everything they post on like reels. And then the second you set foot in that gym for your mock round, that you are that person. And so it's walk into the gym, put your stuff down like they do, warm up like they do, run out to the boulders like they do, brush aggressively, don't brush if they don't, like do literally everything that they do. You are that person. In your head, it's like method acting. Like you it's not I'm so and so pretending to be Tomoa. It's like I fucking am Tomoa. And everything you do, everything you act, everything you think is exactly how that athlete would think. And then you run through the round, and then at the end of the round, it's like debrief. What did you like about what Mejdi does? What did you like about what Toby did? What did you like when Miho, you were Miho? What things did you like? What things did you not like? Like what meshed with you, and what were you like, I'm never doing that again. That was weird. Take those things that you liked or that worked for you from being all these different athletes and pull from them and put them into your own competition persona. And then those are the things that you use when you go out there. And it is performing. It's like a someone goes on stage for a concert and it's you're performing. That's who they are. Or like I have a really good friend who's friends with Gordon Ramsay. And so his show, he's this like crazy, scary, loud, yelling. He's just like, this is terrible. You're stupid. And it's like, and then I have met him in real life, and we've talked about, he's like introverted, he's quiet, he's polite, he's respectful, like who he is in his like life is not who he is. He's a performer. He's passionate about food and cooking, and so that brings out that persona in him. Like he is both of those people. And there's like I feel like I'm the same way. Like I'm friendly and outgoing, but I'm super introverted. And so when I am competing and performing, it just amplifies the performance aspect of it. And I think that is like something that's super important to instill in especially youth athletes who go out and they can be nervous or stressed and they put pressure on themselves. But it's like you're performing. When I'm competing, like maybe I'm pretending to be someone else. I'm not pretending, but you know what I mean? It's like who I am in a World Cup final versus who I am just like hanging out at home. They're different people. And I am both of them, but it's like things that I've learned that I like or that I've taken from other, like watching other athletes or people I've looked up to. Like there's things that I've like molded my comp persona around. And I think doing that for kids when they're stressed is like, yeah, I'm stressed, but right now I'm Yanya. And so I'm going to, this just, and hopefully it resonates with people to be like, holy shit, like I could be like shy and meek and scared and intimidated by this boulder, or I could run out like a Keo and be like, this is what it is. It's sick. People love it. It's sick. I love it. I've done it. It's sick. It's like one of my favorite drills or exercises to like do and have other people do.
I freaking love that. That sounds so cool. I want to be Tomoa. Uh, you just said that
Me too.
everyone wants to be Tomoa. You just said that you've done it
Did
as
you see his
well.
Calvin Klein interview that
That
just
was
came out?
that was literally what I was just. I was like, I really do want to be Tomoa. So, okay.
Damn.
Uh,
A little Marky Mark.
oh man, Tomoa. I love that whole scene over there where they really make climbing seem cool. Where they're
Dude, they're like legit celebrities. He is like marking Calvin Klein right now.
yeah.
What? And it's like perfume ads. Like they are like Justin and Haley Bieber, man. Wild.
Well, I will channel my inner Tomoa if I ever do a photo shoot for Calvin Klein. Need to really get that
Me
six
too.
pack etched in. Well, so you you became Alex Johnson for the last comp that you did. I'm curious who
sort of mentally.
mentally. There you go.
It still got 50th.
That was not the classic Alex Johnson move. But who have you experimented mimicking, and what did you take from them? And then how do you imbibe someone's technique or ability without it kind of taking away something from what makes you special too?
Ooh, I think never take away what makes you special. That's ever. Um, a lot of when I was doing World Cups, like in 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, a lot of what I was, and I wasn't even doing this on purpose, but like subconsciously taking away was from Anna Storr and Killian Fisherber because they were just like the dominant World Cup um, superstars. Like each of them had won like over 30 gold medals or whatever, something. It was like unprecedented at the time. And I think a lot, like I was like spending a lot of time with them because I was traveling and training with them too. And a lot of the way that I emulated them was subconsciously because I just like looked up to them because they were badass. And now that it's intentional, like a lot of what I want to mimic is flow, coordination, like movement style more than like personality or persona because I think my comp persona is working or and was working in the past, like the way that I focus, the way that I like zero in, hone in, and like play off like crowd noise. That's something that I've always been good at. But I was also really like, if you look back at older, really old videos of me competing, like 03, 04, 05, 06, even like 08, 09 World Cups, like I'm like really, I don't interact with the crowd. I'm like shy. I'm like, I seem really insecure and nervous. And even though I was like, could perform on the wall, I didn't have that on the pads yet. And I think a lot of that came from watching like Anna and Killian. Like they would run out, wave to the crowd, do something cool, or like fall off the last move of a finals boulder, and then 30 seconds left. It's their last attempt. They turn around and hype the crowd up and then like get back on. And it was like that was stuff that I'd never seen before or done or experienced before. And I think for like the first decade of me competing, I was shy and meek, even though I was like winning. And so that bringing out that personality is sort of when I started to be like, oh, okay, this is like fun. I can, and it, you like act more confident and then feel more confident. So it's like, if I'm acting confident on the pads, I'm like waving to people, I'm hyping the crowd up and like hearing that noise. And I turn around and look at a climb and I'm like, all right, let's fucking go. Like you just hyped them up. You better do something cool.
I like how you put that where it's not that the thing you take from the from wherever you're emulating at the moment somehow is a layer over you. It almost like brings out the best in you. You still want it to be yourself on the pad, but you just wanted to kind of showcase it like they were doing. And I can even think about that in coordination. It's not that you need to do a boulder like Tomoa does. It's like, well, Tomoa is going to commit. Tomoa is going to be
Yeah.
dynamic here. If I were going to be like Tomoa, how does that come out? I think it's an important distinction you make there.
It's like you see the flow and the style and the almost like weightlessness of the way that some of the dudes like hop around through sequences. And I'm just like, God, that's so cool. I want to move like that. Or like one of my favorite climbers to watch compete is Sean Bailey, and he like has that weightlessness and that flow and just like the yeah, I like it. It's almost like calligraphy, you know, like just it's like cursive, it's fluid, everything is like connected, and you use momentum from here to here to get to here. And it was that sort of style. And that's like really common in comps now these days too, is like you have to swing that way to go that way. And then you stick that hold and you have to use that momentum to go that way. And it is all sort of like interwoven and intricate. And I think that those styles, that coordination, the flow, momentum, like all of that is the thing that I'm working to emulate the most now, is like committing through that and also just having that like seemingly weightless flow.
What's interesting is I love that flow. I love watching Sean climb, especially in comps. He does have that just to a
It's so
T.
nice. It's just this, you're just like, damn, that looks nice.
It looks great. Uh, so I'm more of a flowy dynamic climber, but when I see like Imori be super static and just lock things off and get into those positions, that kind of commitment into a body position to allow herself to get to the next move, instead of kind of like cruising through a movement, kind of like embracing that position, embracing, and then moving the arm. I always find that like an interesting style where it's like they move their whole body into the position before the arm goes to the next hold. And
Yeah,
what I'm getting at here is that it's interesting to, like, when do you know when to kind of work on those weaknesses? Like I struggle with that super static style, and although flowiness is great, it's not everything. And I would say Sean just he may flow like the best of them, but I have seen him get into positions and lock things down and be that kind of static climber. And how do you kind of balance those
totally.
two and find which way to lean into?
I think it's important to, like, while we're working on our weaknesses, always continue to elevate our strengths. And so something I'm working on right now is more of like a static lock off, tensiony sort of style, because my whole life has been that flow. Like I've also been a really dynamic climber, and I think that was like initially why, going back to the swarm, like I would always do so well on the second move, is like I wasn't strong, but I had great flow and great movement and like great finger like contact strength. And so in my later years, I've had to get a lot better at tension, locking off, and I'm like good at towing in and using my lower body, but like lock off strength is something that's always been a huge weakness of mine. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I like really started training it and then have gotten better at it. And now, even now, like coming back, I'm still really dynamic, even with my like weak leg. I'm flow, like it's flow, it's like gearing up for a big move, and it's kind of power, but it really is momentum. Like I'm momentum is my, yeah, style, I would say. And so I'm going to South Africa in a month, and I think a lot of what I want to train in the next month you don't is static and tension and strength. And a lot of, I know South Africa is like powerful and there's a ton of dinos and stuff, but climbing outside on rock is not World Cup flow. So while that is like my style naturally is like comp dynamic momentum flow, and it's something that I'm going to continue to elevate, I want to like also enhance my weaknesses, which for me is like mobility and lock off strength. And so it's, you have to do both. And working on your weaknesses sucks. Nobody wants to do it. It's not fun because nobody wants to work on things that we're bad at. It sucks. But that's why you have to give attention to both. Like you can spend half of a session working on something you suck at and not enjoying it, but improving it. And then you spend the next half of your session doing what you like. And so it's, you're constantly elevating both. And that's, I think, a really important balance, because if we just spent the next 1 to 3 months only working on our weaknesses, it wouldn't be fun at all. We would be demoralized. And then even if we did like amplify our weaknesses tenfold, like our strength all of a sudden now is like rusty.
And you're never gonna out Imori, right? No matter how
Absolutely
much you
not.
try. Although there's something about that way you put it, of looking at other competitors and then mimicking them, that I think is really powerful, because sometimes it's hard for me to even understand how a move might go in that static way. Like I can't even think that way. I think in the dynamic, that's just how I think. And so if I had to put on the Imori goggles and say, how would she do this move? It completely changes was my frame of reference. So I'm gonna use that. One thing I'm curious about in this comp world is you keep. I know you're super good under pressure, but I know you must coach people who aren't under pressure. And I'm wondering if you've ever had these moments where you're right in the middle of the round. Do you ever kind of fall out of your headspace? Like, do you ever have a moment where you go like, oh, wait, like I'm kind of just thinking about my laundry instead of being right here. And what are your techniques for getting back into the headspace that you typically occupy?
Ooh, that's a great question. Recently, I think it had only, yeah, recently I can think of one time that it happened, and it was 2022 Open Nationals finals. And it just was like a really long day. Like we had semis in the morning, and then, and that I was like on and in it. And it was like, yeah, super on. And then a couple hours later, we had finals, and it was this like horrendous format where it was one gender at a time. And so all the dudes went first, and we were sitting in ISO. We were in ISO for like 4 hours at least. And so it was like all the dudes go, and it's like 2 to 2.5 hours if everyone takes their full 4 minutes, whatever, super boring. And then, no offense to the dudes, we were in ISO, so we couldn't watch, and it was boring. And so then the girls start going, and it was like several hours of like it had been like a 14-hour day. And it was like mentally, I was not focused at all. So I came out for Boulder One and just was like done. Like I was like, I'm fucking ready to go home. I want to eat dinner. I don't care anymore. I don't want to be here. I made finals. And right now, getting sixth in finals, like getting last in finals, great, fine. I don't like, I just want this to be over. It was like really unfortunate that I felt that way, but also I just was like, are we serious? Like, good Lord. And I ended up, yeah, getting last in finals and like not, I don't think I did a single boulder. And by boulder four, I was just like not even getting off the ground and like laughing. And I was like, can I be done? Please stop. Make me, I don't want, don't make me do this anymore. Can I please stop? And it was, I talked to someone about it afterwards, and they were like, the older you get, the harder it is to like mentally stay engaged. So it's like age, like you just checked out because of age. And I was like, interesting. Also, I think I checked out of boredom, which sounds fucked up. Like it was like, oh, I'm in nationals finals and I'm bored. Like it sounds stupid and silly and arrogant, but it was just like I was psyched in semis, and then when I got into ISO for finals, I was like psyched. And then when I pulled on the wall 4.5 hours later, I was like not psyched. And so it's for kids like to be in ISO for 8 hours and then try to compete. Like still, I mean that's still happening. Like really, really hard. I was coaching two athletes at the North American Cup like last month, and both of them were like 59th and 60th in the running order. And so we went into ISO. It was 8 hours. We were in ISO for 8 hours together, and they both were going last and second to last. And we went out, and I was like, Jesus Christ. This is like, how is this still happening in 2024 where people are sitting in ISO for 8 hours and then trying to go compete? And it is extraordinarily mentally taxing to sit and do nothing but not be able to like leave or watch or go outside or just and then warm up and have to compete. And so it was like that sort of, I was checked out. And for sure, that was the first and worst time that I can remember being that checked out.
8 hours in ISO? That's brutal.
Still a month ago.
Oof.
Heinous. If had I been competing, I would have been not psyched, but because I was just coaching, like I was like hanging out, eating snacks, chit chatting. Like I didn't have just like didn't have to, I was socializing. But if I was an athlete, like
Yeah. What did you talk to him about, when it's half an hour to go?
um how excited we all should be that that's almost over. And then I had one, so one of them was Leo Costanza, right? So I was like in ISO with him for 8 hours. He was dead last. He went dead last, and he ended up coming out and like flashing every boulder and ended up in first.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, sick. Now we have to do this all again tomorrow. But like that was insane to me. Like his mindset, he has one of the best mindsets of anyone I've ever met, because he's there. He tries hard every single time. He gives 100% effort every single time. And every single time he pulls on the wall, he's having fun. There's like nobody competes like him. It's, yeah, it's awesome. And puts no pressure on himself. He like truly is like, he came out of that round like we're not allowed to talk to him, so he came out like we 8 hours in ISO. He like did all the boulders. I think he fell once or twice, but ended up doing all the boulders, and then came out, and Melina and I were like waiting like on the other side of the gate, and he was like, oh man, like did I make semis? And we were like messing with him a little bit, and we were like, yeah, I mean you did. He was like, it just must have been like a flash round. Like, I should have, it was like 5 flashes. Like, everyone had to flash to get in. Like, what place am I in? And we were like, well, you're in first. And he was like, what? Oh my God. And so he's just like so genuinely, like, he just is like tries hard and he has fun. And it's so great. And there's no pressure on him. And I think that's why he performs like he does. Sometimes it's awesome. But
You you told me that when you watch semis that you can often pick out people who will quote unquote choke in finals. If we don't want to
oh,
talk
yeah.
about this, but I thought it
No,
was just
choke,
a
not even choke in finals, choke in semis and not make finals.
okay.
I'm really good at this game.
What that's a really I don't become a commentator because that would be really brutal. If while they're
I
this
think I'm
person
banned from commentating.
they're not going to make it. No
Yeah,
way.
with too many strikes.
Um, what is it that you see? What jumps out at you, and maybe more importantly, how would one if they hear you saying that X person does this and that is a bad sign, how might they make sure that if they see it in themselves that they mitigate that?
It's all mental. It's all mental and it's pressure. And someone could come out in semis being like top 3 to top 5 in qualifiers, and I could probably point them out before semis day. Like, I could pluck out the people in qualifiers where I'm like, choke, 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 choke. And it's all mental and it sounds really mean. But like, it's what they've done in the past. And it's like they consistently can qualify in a really high place and then consistently don't make finals. And I think they just let that pressure of like coming out ranked really high in semis, it like makes them crack. And they could be like one of the strongest athletes in the field. And it's like, you should be in finals. You should be on the podium. You should be in every final and you should be on every podium. And for some reason, it's like they crumble. And it has nothing to do with how good they are physically at all. It's a completely mental. They just start to unravel. There, it's like if they don't do the first boulder, then they carry that with them for every other boulder throughout the round. And it's they don't know that maybe not a single person did the first boulder. And that comes like way back to when we were talking in the beginning, is like you can't let how you think anyone is doing around you get to you. So you come out and you don't do the first boulder and then you unravel not knowing that no one else has done the first boulder. Like, that's maybe it doesn't go, you know? And there's so many rounds recently, especially over the last 6 months, have been one top rounds. One top rounds. Like, I had an athlete come out at team trials and didn't do the first 4 boulders in qualifiers, and then by boulder 5 had completely like given up on themselves, not knowing it was like, and boulder 5 is something they easily could have flashed, but they were just like, they were like, well, I didn't top a single other boulder. Well, here we are at boulder 5. Could have flashed it, should have flashed it. It didn't do it, and it was a one top round. Had they topped that boulder, they would have been in semis.
What did that conversation look like with them afterwards?
It sounded exactly like what I just said. I was like, it is never over. You don't know, and it's going to be a one top round. And it doesn't matter that you didn't do any other boulder, and maybe you fell off the finish of 3 of them, but maybe one of those 3 was the one boulder that someone else did. Like, you were capable of doing 3 to 4 boulders, but all you needed to do was one. And so the fact that you carried that burden of not doing any of the boulders before you onto the easiest boulder in the round that you should have flashed and then didn't, we got to work on that. And that's like, it's so common, and climbing is just so inconsistent. Like, what boulder is hard or how many people do what. Like, so many rounds in the last 6 months have been one top rounds. And that's something that I've come to expect as a coach, and it's something I prepare. I'm every athlete, I'm like, it is never over, and you never know when it's going to be one top round. I don't care if you don't get off the ground on the first 3 boulders. You fucking try hard on boulder 4 still. That's like, you never know. And maybe that one top is the thing that gets you into finals. And I've seen it 100 times. And even more so, like, flash rounds these days are not common. I think setters want hard rounds, especially semis. They want it to be hard. And Vale was like 2 tops to finals for the girls and like 1 top to finals for the boys. And you don't know that when you're competing. And so because you don't know that, why are you going to let it unravel you?
It's so easy when I hear you say it, AJ, but I'm just thinking about the last time I competed in nationals. I like messed up the first one and I was like, oh, that was like an easy slab. Like anyone, I'm sure everyone did it. And then on the second one, I just, I tried, I just tried like too hard and I was like, oh, I'm too pumped now to even do like the third one. And I just, like all of the boulders were ones I should have easily done. And I see this even outdoors too, because it's so tempting to say to yourself, "Oh, I can't believe I fell off on that warm up. Like I was just warming up, and yeah, like or it felt hard." And it's just like the spiraling is something that even when we're aware of, it's not. It's hard to grab it in the moment and squash it. And that's why I ask about those times where things go wrong and like the techniques of pulling it back, because I feel like once you let yourself start spinning, that's it's much harder to get yourself back once you started spinning than just never going there in the first place.
For sure. For sure. And that's something that you can actively practice. And it's something that I also have to actively practice, not so much in comps, because again, it's like this weird, I'm performing. And so, like, I'd say I don't get off the start on the first four boulders. Like, I still have a boulder to perform on. Like, I still want to give a show. I don't care if I've like sucked for the first 40 minutes of this comp. I still want to end and I want people to remember something that I did that was cool. And I think it's more in my day to day that I have to practice that, and more in my day to day that I try to have my athletes practice it too. Like if I'm going to the gym and having a horrible session, like literally falling off of V4s, that's when I spiral and I get really negative. Really, lately I've been crying, which is weird because I'm like not usually like I've cried in the gym like 4 times in the last 6 months, which is really weird because I'm not. I think it's like injury frustration, but I have never cried in the gym before until like this past year. And now I do it all the time and it's really weird. But I'll just have like this terrible and it's you I sit there spiraling for 20 minutes and then I have to be like this right now, this moment is when I need to be practicing fixing my mindset. Cuz if I can't do it now in the gym on a Tuesday when nothing matters, it's going to be a lot harder to do in a round. And I am intentionally like I will cry for half an hour and just sit there and be like I need to make the most of what I'm doing right now, and this is part of the like mental training is part of the process. Like how much of competing do you think is physical versus how much of competing do you think is mental? And then how much physical training do we do versus how much mental? It's like extraordinarily unbalanced. And that's like part of something that I emphasize a lot is like I can sit in the gym and have a meltdown and I that is when I need to practice turning it around the most. Because the more you can do that and the easier it gets and the shorter your meltdowns get, the better it's going to be and the easier it's going to be to control when it matters. If you can't fix it on a day it doesn't matter, you're in trouble. And it's not like foolproof. Like there's definitely days where I'll like pack up and leave the gym. And I mean, sometimes like you have to have those days too. But you have to sit there in your spiral and be like, this is important right now. Me pulling myself out of this right now and making the most out of this session is important for the athlete I want to be in the future.
I like the idea of practicing in your everyday. It's that idea of you don't what is it? We don't raise to the level of the moment, we sink to the level of our practice or something like that. Have you heard that
Mm-hmm.
concept?
Yeah.
Yeah. uh, I like the idea of just if I come out of the bubble and I'm about to step on stage, I just ask myself, what would Alex Johnson do? And and just
Ooh.
kind of,
We should
well,
make bracelets.
I remember this bracelet.
WWAJD. Me too. I had one. I don't know why. I thought they were cool. I didn't know what they meant. I just thought they were cool.
So I want to tie this into thinking of these amazing athletes that we sometimes mimic or that you sometimes do these drills on, and I want to ask you what you think is the difference between good climbers and great climbers.
I hilariously and ironically just listened to a podcast clip that asked someone else the same question. I think it was Joe Rogan and Dr. Andy Galpin, who I'm a huge fan of. I've listened to a lot of Andy Galpin podcasts, love, obsessed, follow him on Instagram for years. And it was like this exact same question. And it was Andy Galpin's answer would be the same as mine, and it's talent. And I think the people who are the best, and the best by that much, just are fucking better. I think that I've been asked this for years, and there's that quote that's like, hard work beats talent. No, it doesn't. Someone can work really, really hard and do like really well and maybe beat talent sometimes, but like having talent to fall back on and then adding like not even hard work, medium work on top of it, I think that athlete will always be better. And I don't mean that to be discouraging at all, because I think that it's so, that gap can be closed, because how often do you get an athlete that's so wildly talented that works as hard as the hardest working person out there? That's Kobe, LeBron, Steph Curry. That's it. Otherwise, it's like you have the athletes that bust ass and work way harder, and then you have athletes that are so talented but don't work hard. And it's like that's most of the field. And it's so rare that you get Kobe in a sport. And that's like Yanya, Kobe, Yanya. Like she's so much better than everyone else, and she works harder. And I think that that's the rest of us, the rest of the field are a mixture of talent and hard work and maybe a little bit of both. But so yeah, Tiger Woods, better. Just better. They're just better. And then like second place to, you can still make fun, like hard work is amazing. And that's something that I think, man, it's so interesting. I could talk about this a lot too. And I, again, do not mean it to be discouraging. Like you can work hard and you can be the best. Like for sure, you can work hard and be the best. But there maybe always will be a Yanya or a Kobe or a Tiger. Michael Jordan, better and worked hard. I don't know. I don't know if this sounds like crazy or, yeah, again, you can work harder than everyone else and be the best. There just might be someone out there who was born with like incredible talent who might also be the best.
I mean, I think that the thing that's interesting, well, first of all, I just think that's an interesting take that I don't disagree with, to say that Michael Jordan has no natural talent and he just got it through
Worked hard.
doing a bunch of
Yeah.
free throws. Just doesn't quite sound right.
Right.
I do think that when we look at our idols, like you just talked about, those people you spoke of in basketball, that hard work component, it's like talent is necessary, but it's not sufficient to make yourself really, really great. Because I'm sure you've bumped into, I mean, I know
Exactly.
a lot of climbers who are like, you're like, damn, you're good. And then they're kind of like not that good. Like you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you could have been amazing, but you're kind of not that good.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's
Or you don't
interesting.
work that hard.
Yeah. And I also think it's interesting where sometimes people have latent talent that it's like in a specific style, maybe it is their mental game or whatever the case may be. And that's something I love about climbing, is that I feel like there's a lot of ways for people to express their talent, where there's certain things that I'm not good at, but there's certain things I'm pretty darn good at. And I will work on those weaknesses, but I'm never going to be Imori, like I was saying.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that was brutal, AJ. I hope you. I feel like a bunch of people are just like, oh, okay. I need to pick my
No,
penance
no.
better.
But my my examples of like those insane standouts, I feel like in climbing we've had two in our lifetime. One has been Chris Sharma, and one has been Yanya.
Hmm.
And those are the ones that are like everyone else. I think those are just the two that it's like talent,
Do you
and
really
everyone
think?
else I think is a mixture of both.
Do you really think Chris was naturally more talented than every other? I don't know. I don't even know if it's released when we started this, but I did a podcast with Greg Lowe. I don't know if you know who he is, but he climbed a lot with Chris back in the day. He's a bit older than Chris, and
Hmm.
he was saying, you guys got to take this with a grain of salt, because when you're competing against these people, when you look back on it, he said Chris wasn't that strong. Chris was strong, but he was like, there were people who were stronger than him in our crew, and Greg was pretty darn strong too. But he said that Chris had something else, another gear he would go into mentally, and it's the focus that he showed. And it's just kind of interesting that you pick out those guys. Like, I feel like anytime we pick out someone special, there's always someone who will say, like, I don't know, were they really, like in Yanya, I don't know, Yanya's really good though. I have a hard time taking Yanya down a peg. And I shouldn't take Chris down a peg either. But it's just, it's interesting to only think that there's been two at the pinnacle. And it makes me wonder, do you think it's like that because the sport's so young, or what do you think the next 10 years or, holds for seeing athletes at the top?
I think that everything will progress and continue to like we'll get like the next talent in the next 10 years. But I think there are so many people who are so talented and there are so many people who work really hard. And then there's just like the one or two standouts in every sport.
Well, let me phrase it in a different way, because the thing that's brutal is that I really do agree with you. And something I like to talk about in general is I feel like a lot of people, when we talk about climbing, or there's a lot of this messaging out there that's like not real. That's I don't know how to put it. I don't want to call out specific examples because I don't want to call out people, but sometimes we put out a false sense of what climbing really hard is really like, and what the sacrifices might be. Uh, but let me ask you that question again a touch differently, because when I think of good to great, you were laser clear on picking out the top of the top of the top, like who's the greatest all time versus just also rans. And I guess the thing I'm always interested in is that I feel like there's a barrier of people who climb a lot, pretty talented, strong, like they're good. They're damn good. Like, people you go to the gym, you're like, you know, look at that guy, or look at that girl. Like, they're good. But it's different to make it to that next stage and be in finals for 20 years. Like, maybe it's not everyone who could ever be, you can, like, you're talking about that next level of great to greatest of all time. And I want to
Got
pull it
you.
back
Got you.
one notch to just the really damn good.
The me level.
I I didn't want to say that. I'm not
I'm
saying
like
that. I don't
pretty
know if I'm.
okay.
You're.
And I've been
I
pretty okay for a long time.
Yeah, and that's
I see. I see.
impressive. I don't know how you've done it for so long.
Down to the like, yeah, got you. Okay.
Just winning multiple World Cups, just that, just
Just a couple, only a
yeah.
couple. Not winning 30 or 40 or
Ah,
whatever that.
good job, Yanya.
Just a couple.
Good job.
Seriously. Ooh, okay, that I think this is better. I have a better answer for this as long as this is um consistency and trying. I try hard a lot. I try really hard. I'm consistent. I'm aside from like my depression of being injured, I've been just climbing a lot and I try hard. The other thing I think is really important is I take breaks when I want to take breaks. And that can be a week or even up to like 6 weeks, like I take breaks. And I think that's been like the biggest contributor to the longevity of my career is when I don't want to climb or I don't want to train, I don't. And I don't mean that in like a laziness sense. Like it's like I'll go through these slumps every couple years. I'm just like, I'm burnt out. And instead of forcing myself to power through those slumps or like feeling guilty at myself for like not wanting to go to the gym when I feel like I should, I will take time off. And I don't go back to the gym and I don't start training again until I want to and I'm motivated to, and then it's like game on. And I think that has been really, really important for me in having like this much, I guess, this long of a successful career. It's like I take breaks.
I wonder if that sounds really connected to your the try hard thing. I think that people think they're trying hard, but they're not really. And in some ways, you
Right.
kind of can't fake it. And I think that listening to yourself, where it's like, man, I just can't bring it. Like I'm not psyched, and then listening to that.
And you can go to the gym like when you're not psyched and just have like kind of a mundane session, but you know when you're not trying hard and that you in order to like improve, you have to be trying hard. You have to be and it sometimes you have to try hard and it's trying is binary. You are trying hard or you are not. Did you try to do that move? Really? And I do this drill with athletes too, where it's they will give a go on something and then they'll come down and on a piece of paper with a pen, not on their iPhone, I will have them write down at what percent they think they tried on that move or that climb. And if it's not 100%, you weren't trying. Which again sounds a little harsh, but did you try or did you half-assing is not trying. There's no like binary. You tried or you did not try. It's like
That's
Yoda.
that's a Yoda. There you go. Um, I'm not as experienced on those coordination moves. I really understand trying super
Ooh,
hard.
okay, that's a flaw. That's a flaw in my. Uh huh.
Well,
I
yeah.
see
What
where
does
you're
it mean
getting
to
at.
try hard
Okay,
there? Yeah.
that is a loophole. We found a loophole in my method. Committing to like just the hard move, or like you get to the top of a boulder and you're throwing for the finish, and it's like you're tired, you're wrecked, you got a little tunnel vision because you're again. It's like you gave 85%. Had you given 100, you would have topped the boulder. You gave 85. Coordination is different because it's a lot often learned and scary. And so I think you can give 85% on a coordination move to try to get like learn it. And then like you're committing 85%. And it's not that you're not trying, it's just that you're like, okay, I have to suss this out a little bit and then when it comes down to it, you can eventually either give 100 or choose not to.
I don't think that's a whole that totally makes sense. Uh, you brought up that tunnel vision of throwing to the last jug and trying hard there, but having tunnel vision. It's something that I think I see in comps, and I struggled with in comps, is that they do a really good job of making the last move still hard, and it's so
And
tempting.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so tempting to get there and say to yourself, no, I'm going to try really hard. And you do, but you try hard in this bad way where you're like, I'm going to huck for it. And that's very different from trying hard in a manner that would lead more likely to success. How do you balance that try hard?
I call that like finish hold panic. And it's like on a route, the last like move or two on a route or the last move on a boulder, you get up to it and you're like, oh my God, the finish. And then it's like a cat jumping off like a slippery car hood, like you're just like, ah. And it's so common inside, even and outside. It's like you're just like, wow, and it's trying to like I do a lot of like breathing, like breath work stuff. And then I have like a trigger word, I guess is what I call it, but maybe it's something different. But it's like a focus word that it's like I calm myself down with, and I'll like look at a hold and just be like, grab, grab. Like I'm not gonna throw for it. I'm like, take a second, determine if I'm in the right position, and then I'm gonna grab the hold. And it's works for me. I'm experimenting with it with other athletes, but it's something that like centers me and focuses me. And if I'm at all slipping out of that like blackout focus or turning into the sail cat that's like, oh my God, the finish, wow, throw. I have to be like, no, I'm not going to just throw for it. I'm going to grab it. And a lot of times, like these days, you're not even going for like a jug, like a finish hold in comps. It's like a position. And so a lot of it is, I'll say, find it, don't force it. And you're in this funky, weird, balancy, maybe dihedral, slab, something's really subtle. And it's before you take off, whatever limb or the hand you like, you have one hand on the finish, and if you rush it, you're going to come off. Like, you have to have that patience to find the finish position that they want you to settle into. You cannot force it. Sometimes you can, again, loophole, but most of the time it's some like a shift in the hips or dropping a heel on just something where it's you find it, and then once you know, you can take that bottom hand off and like bring it up to match. You know, you have to, it's find it, don't force it. And a lot of times it's like they'll get a hand on the finish and they'll just be like, and they're, like not set up at all to do it right. And it's again that like finish panic where it's like, oh my God, the finish hold, I gotta match it. And it's like, whoa, okay, matching the finish these days is a move. It's not a jug that you hang on that you then bring the second hand up to. Matching the finish is a full on move.
That was really well described. That's really cool. I love that, and I am very guilty of finish panic, and it's why comps are so good. This is
We
why
all do it.
this is why I think competitions are so good to train climbers, because of that mental ability to slow down, find the position. And I do this thing where I always have, it's always really interesting to me when people talk about trying hard, and what does trying hard really mean? Because I'll do this thing where I'll be working on some move and I'll like walk up, and maybe I'm just trying to do this move in ISO. I'll really find my hands perfectly, just get super strong, put my foot on some giant foot, and then yarn on it, and my foot pops. And it's like I was on some giant foot, but I was so in my hands and upper body, I completely neglected the giant foot, and it's just like the dumbest way to try hard. But I was trying hard. I was
Totally.
trying hard, but that's not the goal to trying hard. It's like an interesting distinction there.
Yeah, like trying hard, smart,
Okay.
and trying hard in a being smart.
Okay. Okay. So I need better parents. I need to be smarter. And no, it's great. Okay. AJ, really wild to see you compete at such a high level, and I'm still forever as it's been decades, and I'm glad to hear that you're starting this next chapter with. I know the injury is a bummer. I just got to tell you, as someone who has been through some injuries, it, sometimes I feel like it's not good to think of it as you're going to be like you used to be. I feel like that's not quite how the world works. Just like how when you went back and did the swarm and had success, you weren't like you were before. And that's not
Right.
exactly how we climb. Is some things get better, some things get worse, but as a climber you grow, and you may just become a different climber, but the goal is never to be even, your 16-year-old self, because that 16-year-old self wasn't, a good climber. So just having that,
Right.
yeah. So that's just my little. I look forward to seeing you on the podium again, regardless of this long-term setback. And it's rough. I know.
I think I could get back there. I think right round, right day. I think I'll be back on the podium. We'll see.
Okay. Well, any pro tip to leave us with, other than just be like Kobe, be like Mike.
Ooh. Okay, we can't. Nobody can be like Kobe.
Mm.
Mamba mentality, baby. I have like enjoy what you're doing, have fun, enjoy what we're doing. It's like the most cliche thing ever, but a lot of times we just like get so sucked into our head. Like we have to enjoy what we're doing. And I think that would be one. And then the other thing is like try hard. Even if you think you're trying hard, like write it down. What percent effort did I give on that really? And try to make it 100% every time. And I have kids like I'm working with a kid, this like 12-year-old little like rad cutie, and it's every time she pulls on, I have to be like, I need you to give me 100% focus and 100% effort. And if you're not there, don't get on yet. Like if you need to take a minute, if you need to take a second, if you need to take 5 minutes, whatever you can do to give 100% focus, 100% effort. And it's just try that every time. Like go have fun, enjoy what you're doing. We love climbing. This is why we do it. But I think to get better, to like bust out of a plateau, it's like try hard every time.
I really like that, and what little I do know about climbing harder is that it doesn't get easier. You keep on trying harder and harder and harder. It's not like you reach some level of try hard and then like that's just a check mark. It just keeps getting harder. Yeah.
Yeah, and the better you get, it doesn't change at all how hard you have to try, because you just like elevate your own level and then try harder stuff.
Yeah. There's some famous runner I want to say, maybe with your track and field background, you'll remember it was just about
Oh, I
this.
did track. I don't follow track.
Well, this was maybe like pre-Fontaine, like the guy who did the 4-minute
Okay.
mile, something. I
Yeah,
just remember some statement from him where it never gets easier. It actually just gets hard. Like the faster you go, the harder it gets. It just gets harder. And I think that's something I don't think we should hide from people is, yes, you might see someone come in who's a crusher and they just kind of are warming up on some V7 project of yours, but that doesn't mean that it's like when you're trying hard on your V7 project, I got to tell you, they're trying even harder on their V14 project.
totally.
The try hard that the best bring out is beautiful and almost scary. How it just keeps ratcheting up. So I like
Yeah.
that discussion. Okay, well, good luck in Rocklands. Also, I was going to ask you to plug something, but I just got a plug for you. You also are a coach. We talked about a lot, and I love those drills. I freaking love those drills. And also, anyone who's listening, just that idea of writing down your try hard. There's something about that. I think what coaches often bring is this a point of view that's not you, and so they can say something that you maybe didn't see, but there's another way of doing that, and that's also writing things down. There's somehow like when you have to make it materialize, you go, okay, how
Mm-hmm.
hard was I trying? You can say I was trying
Yeah.
hard. It's like, okay, how hard? Write it down. And I think that was a really powerful thing there. And so I know that you love coaching, so I just wanted to remind people you're a coach now.
I am a coach. I just started my own business.
Oh, congrats! What's it called?
I know. DelphiClimbing.com. So, Delphi is the gym in the Rocky movies that Creed trained in when he became world champ. And then, if you've ever watched the Creed movies, which I'm obsessed with, it's the same gym eventually that Creed trains in. He trains in the Delphi gym to become world champ.
Ooh, I
Sports,
like
man. I love sports.
that. Is a good origin of the name. Good stuff.
I
Okay, well, if there's any, do you want to plug anything else before we go?
don't think so. But if anyone wants to work together, I'd be psyched. I love climbing. I love nerding out about climbing. I love talking about climbing. I love talking about basketball. If anybody wants to talk about basketball,
Be careful, basketball.
yeah,
I,
don't
I,
play it, but we can talk about it.
if we had more time, I would have gone deeper into movement and spatial awareness. That idea of just being able to look at the boulder. It's hard to do on a podcast of all places, but that thing you said where you could just look at a boulder and see like right, left, right. Oh, that's how it's going to go. Developing that awareness both in yourself and being able to articulate is something that is very, very difficult. And I don't know, I'm glad you're out there sharing that knowledge.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's one of the things I'm the best at, and it's fun for me.
Well, have fun in Rocklands. It is
Thank you.
powerful and dynamic. You do need to lock off. Have you ever been? Have you ever been to Rocklands?
No, I haven't.
Oof,
I have not
oof.
been. I know.
Enjoy. It's beautiful there. You're gonna have a blast.
Sick. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Alex. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.